I'm not sure. All I did was scribble out because that phone number changed, so.
Yep. Do you have a quorum?
We'll need to work with IT.
One more
I'll send
person.
an IT request.
Whatever they're gonna do.
Would you please? Because obviously it's not working the way. it
Oh, we do
should.
have a quorum. There's 5 of us.
Yeah.
Right? 5 is a quorum.
I go to the website
Right?
and it says it's looking for a password, which I don't have.
It should.
Okay, since
Thank you.
Are we on? Are we live? Are we waiting?
On air, thread,
It is?
on air.
Oh, okay. I'll call the meeting to order at 8:30. Certification of open meeting law requirements have been met. Roll call, committee members Nutter here.
Sorry here.
Adams here.
Waldera here.
Becker here.
Thank you. I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I so move.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Has everybody had a chance to review the minutes from our 2/7/23 meeting? Were there any corrections, additions? Okay, I would call for a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll so move.
I'll second it.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
We now will have 3 to 4 minutes for public comment. What is the new number? Sorry.
He never
Oh, he
gave
didn't
it.
tell us. Okay. Dang, because this number is child support now. Does anybody know the new number? Yeah, go see if he will
I
tell
did
you.
not know that that was changing.
I didn't either.
Last week, Wednesday, we switched from traditional phones to internet phones via Zoom. So that switchover happened on Wednesday. So we're dealing with a few things.
Learning as you go.
Learning and just, there's always technical
Yeah.
issues that pop up now and again.
When
And
you call into the main number, it's automated and everything now. So people notice on that end, you call the main.
I need to try that just to see what,
Oh,
to
thank
experience
you.
it myself.
No, it's automated.
Okay, the call-in number, if anybody out there has public comment or wants to check in with us, the new number is 715-538-1894. Thank you. Does anybody here have public comment? Buzz, do you want to talk about this for a second?
Yeah, I just brought a notice, on Thursday will be, the Red Cedar Conference. It's our 10th year in 11. We've been traveling last year. But I guess the focus of this is impacts of climate change issues on rural communities. And so we got a keynote on those kind of impacts. We also got the folks from Monroe County. Monroe County coming in and talk about the planning they've done. They were kind of a leader at a county board level. And
You might want to pull your microphone a little
Oh.
closer. Thanks.
county board level, and their director, like Mike, will be giving that talk. We've got a talk on Rick Clark from Indiana. Rick's been nationally recognized for his ability to flip his almost 6,000 acre farm. I think he produces 5 or so commodities, and he's flipped the whole thing organic with no herbicide usage and very little fertilizer usage. And the big message that Rick always brings is, I don't farm for yield, I farm for a return on investment. And this guy is raising 80 bushel beans on food grade beans with no extra fertilizer and no herbicide usage, as one example of what he does. He also incorporates grazing into his rotations. He's also going to be at Buzzy's in Mondovi tomorrow for another workshop. If people wanted to slip over there, that's being sponsored by Pepin and Buffalo counties.
The restaurant?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And he's, if you've never heard him, he's quite amazing. What he's cut down on his fuel usage and his yields are only slightly below some of the biggest yielding for corn, beans, oats, wheat of any place in the country, and he's quite an amazing farmer. So we'll have him, and then we kind of have a you-rah-rah talk of a young man that's promoted river cleanups across the country as the closer. There'll be a talk by DNR staff on a brook trout refuge within Dunn County, where we think, I don't know if people have looked at the trout impacts of climate change report that's been done out there for years. We're going to lose all the brook trout reproduction in the southern 2/3 of the state with climate change, and except we have a couple of refuges that we think streams that will have enough base flow in them. So it'll be done by Casey Alley, fish biologist out of Baldwin, and Paul Cunningham, the state fisheries ecologist. So it's another pretty good, strong agenda, and it's pretty reasonably priced. I think it's like $35
Right.
to attend. And so if folks are interested and got the time and want to come over, that'd be great. We really enjoy it. It's not a huge conference. There'll probably be about 200 people attending. It's on campus at Stout in the Union, park out at the fairgrounds, and then we got buses running every 20 minutes to shuttle people into the student union. So,
It's
another
always a really excellent,
yeah, it's a pretty good
conference.
agenda. We're very fortunate to get Rick Clark.
what time is he going to be in Mondovi?
Boy, you'd have to Google it. I think it starts like 10, free
Okay.
lunch, and it's a free to attend,
Okay,
and that's maybe 10 to 2 or something like that. It's usually after chore time is when it starts, and get guys back home mid-afternoon.
okay.
And there's another pretty good meeting, I think it's March 24th, up in Osseo. Again, it's sponsored by the Buffalo Trempealeau Farmers Leg Group and Farmers Union and RC&D, and that one's going to be, I think, March 24th. And that's an all-dayer, and that's also a free event.
Okay. Okay. Thanks, Buzz. Any other?
Jeannie, this is Jean. Just so you
Hi,
know, when
Jean.
I finally get on the phone, I left
Okay.
you 2 messages. For some reason, it wouldn't let me get on. And then to remind you, I have to leave for a state meeting at 9:45. So,
Okay, great, thanks.
yep.
Any other comments from anybody? Okay, I will close the public comment, and we will move on to number 7, Park and Environmental Specialist Update.
That would be me.
That would be Reed.
Okay, I have a few things I'd like to touch on this morning. First of all, snowmobile. We're moving through the season relatively quickly here. For them, March isn't as good time of year because it's getting warmer, obviously, but we've had a pretty good snow season. We've had some warm-ups, but then some decent snowfalls afterwards. There's been no issues, only positive call-ins and reports from people, so the clubs are doing a great job, and they're getting all of their entries into me, and we're sending them on to the state. So moving along good there. I'm going to be starting the application for 2 new bridges as well shortly here. That's due April 15th. So that's what's going on the snowmobile front.
Do you know how many days the trails were open this year?
I'd have to look. I've got a tally going upstairs, but
More than last year?
yeah, oh yes, yep. It's been a pretty good year this year so
Okay,
far,
good.
so it's good.
All right.
And we do have some snow coming this week. I don't know if that'll be enough to quite get them back open or not. I guess it kind of depends on how much we get. So
They look pretty bare, the trails.
They are.
That
I
I
mean-
can see on D.
yeah, I think they're saying 6 to 10 inches of snow this week or something.
What?
So yeah, Thursday, but I guess we'll see. The RFPs, those have been sent out to 8 different agencies, and it's an open bid process, or it's in the paper right now, out for bids. So we will see what we get back for proposals from various firms about the site plan at Petrick Park and the bridge, or not, I'm sorry, not the bridge, the rec pond design. So just kind of in limbo there, waiting to see who responds and who shows some interest in taking on that project. So hopefully by the April meeting, I can be presenting the committee some options of what's come in, so.
Reed, where do those requests for bids go? Like, how do we publicize them and get different people to bid on those?
They're in the paper right now. So they're in the paper for 2 weeks.
Just like our local
Just
Times?
like, correct, yep. Like, I think it's called a legal notice. Well, I put this out there as a legal notice, even though looking at the policy, it doesn't need to be. And then also, people that are showing interest, I've sent it to them as well. Like, and so I'm sure I'll be getting call-ins over the next couple of weeks for me to send them the RFP from various other firms too.
Okay, thank you.
This doesn't go out then, I think, to like a statewide county bid site or something? I mean, this is obviously something that's probably not gonna have anybody from Whitehall or Osseo put a bid in. So how does it get outside the local paper is what I...
You know what? We have never put it outside the local paper, but it's amazing how many, like when we did the master plan, when I sent that out into just the local Trempealeau County Times, I had people calling me from all different states. So there must be somebody.
There is, I've dealt with this before too, and there is some kind of, people have software that search legal notices online, and it comes up, and I've had that same experience as Reed. But I think the way we get it outside the office, we know of firms that do this kind of work, and we've sent the RFP directly to
Okay.
them, so that's one of the ways.
It would be fun to have someone local within the county.
For sure. Well,
Yeah.
at least within the state, for sure.
Right, right.
And then the actual work though being done would most likely be local folks.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
So that's the status on the RFPs. Hoping to bring something to you guys next meeting. The signage at Petrick Park, the interpretive signs, those are actually, I'm working with the sign company right now to finish up those for the trail system, so we'll have, each intersection in the trail, and then at the New Prairie, we'll have some nice signs, just kind of complementing the ones we already have, going through the same company there. We do have the seasonal applications open right now or the application period open right now for the seasonal folks. I have not looked to see yet who has applied, something I was planning on working with Mike this week and just see how many applications are in, so.
When does that close?
It says open till filled.
Oh, okay, good.
Yep, so
Good,
it's been
okay.
open for about a week now, so.
Okay.
So that's about all I have for the update on agenda item number 7.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any questions for Reed or Bob?
I've got 2. Do you think we can maybe get the heater put in this spring?
It's as soon as he can get to it. Yep, I mean, I called him last fall, obviously before the ground froze, and he said, I'm not gonna be able to get to it before that happens, but he said, I'll let you know when I'm ready, and then I can call up the co-op, and they can come out at the same time, just so we can run that line from, install the tank as well. So hopefully right away in the spring.
Okay, and then the other one is, let's maybe move forward and get that lower shelter done this year. I think we've drug our feet long enough on that.
Okay.
I think it's been 3 years.
It's probably been 10 years we've been talking about it.
Well, I mean that we've got the materials and
Right,
everything there.
right.
With regard to the heater, does it make sense to reach out and remind whomever it was that was?
I was planning
gonna
on
be
it
doing the
here,
work?
we're getting into the spring for sure, yeah.
This is his busy time. Ben, it's Ben, right?
In Iowa.
Yes, yep, out of Oliva.
Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Reed. We'll turn it over to Mr. Carlson, Economic Development and Tourism Manager Report.
Reed's up again.
Oh, Reed, I'm sorry, 3 Lakes. I kind of jumped over that.
Yeah, this was something we talked about at the last meeting. So I was in touch with U.S. Fish and Wildlife, the refuge there, on some of the lots that border the refuge Round Lake. And we had brought up ideas of maybe doing some floodplain restoration in our lots down there and maybe potential access, possibly a fishing pier, maybe handicapped duck blind, handicapped fishing pier, something to that effect, maybe even just a canoe or kayak landing. And so I'm going to be meeting down there later this month with the Army Corps the regional U.S. Fish and Wildlife manager and then the refuge manager to go through potential ideas and what they would be interested in. At the very least, they're interested in definitely helping come up with a plan to establish floodplain vegetation. So that's where we're at with this. The village, we may need to get some sort of variance to get past the, there's like a 6-inch,
Right.
Mowing rule or vegetation rule. So I guess that'll be something that we might need to deal with as well. But for now, we're in the preliminary just idea stage. So that'll be happening later this month. And then obviously those electrical pedestals will be coming out going to Petrix. So
Right. I'm glad that you engaged with the refuge and the folks there. That's really good.
they sounded very interested.
Yeah,
They
I
did,
bet.
yeah.
There's some possibilities to use that since it can't be camping and overnight stuff, so.
Right.
So we have some frontage access with some of those lots, is what you're implying?
We do. There's 3 lots that access the refuge there.
Great.
It's, the frontage isn't necessarily to the water, but it's close to the water. So, working with the refuge, there could potentially be a dock, kayak launch, duck blind.
So could people drive to this site then?
Yeah,
Oh,
Right, right
absolutely.
to it.
Yeah.
I would think they'd be interested then. That's good. Good work.
You would
Pete.
think so, yeah. I'm excited, very excited about this meeting. Be
Yeah,
really cool
good
to
work.
work something out.
Dawn?
Before we move on from Mr. Lally, I do want to go back to Bob's comment about the lower shelter, I think you said. What do we need to do to get that work done if we have the materials? What's been the holdup? I don't know the history.
The holdup has been getting commitments out of contractors. But I've met 8 or 10 contractors out there over the past 3 years. And then they say they're interested and then never come back with a quote or an estimate or anything. So that's been where we've been at.
Is that another request for bids that should be put out?
Well, I don't think I've even received but maybe one estimate for it.
Is the work too small? What's the barrier? Do
To be honest, I don't know. I don't know why. They show interest and then don't hear from them. Call back. So I'd love to find somebody that would be interested in doing it. It basically entails, while it's actually a pretty large project.
Can you review the scope?
What does it entail? Yeah.
It's going to be installing 2 garage doors, a few windows in there, potentially putting in a ceiling, siding, and new lighting in there as well.
An ADA accessible.
ADA and some new electrical work too.
It just seems interesting to me that there's been no real interest. So how can we try to get out for bids for that? How have we tried?
In the past, how have we tried? I've just called people up and had them meet me out there to get bids for it.
Do you have a ballpark feel for what it would cost? How many hours labor's in this? If we got all the materials, as Bob indicated.
Well, we don't have the
We-
doors and
yeah.
stuff. There's a lot of
We're
stuff we don't
definitely way
have.
short on
Equipment, all
materials.
that.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm gonna guess 40,000-50,000, I'd guess.
This something one of the school's construction projects would be worth contacting that had,
Alita Strum, they do.
well, I didn't know. I thought does Independence have a construction? Bob,
Whitehall's got one.
who's got one?
Whitehall. Building trades.
Building trade?
Those two.
Yeah. I know Osseo does with the new trade center they built.
That's a really good idea.
They're tied to the tech school carpenter program up there, so if you can't get a commercial guy, maybe we could get one of these school systems to take it on. I mean, point is, you got great diversity of work and experience there.
Mm-hmm.
Who did the garage doors at the main?
I'm not sure, that was before my
Oh,
time.
that was before you, okay. Yeah, I don't remember either, but, yeah, it's a big project. There's a lot that needs to be done. 'Cause it's just kind of a shell right now with some issues.
Right. I would hope it would get rented more if we did the work. I know people usually have told me on the phone, like, because it's not near the bathrooms, they don't want to rent it.
Right.
But if it's redone and remodeled and nicer, hopefully that would change.
We'd have to look at bathroom accessibility if it's all done. I mean, that could be more plumbing, adding plumbing and.
Yeah, and if you get a lot of use for it, you might be able to get portable potties.
Right.
For sure.
And handicap accessible ones too.
Yeah.
Just put them there and then it might be rented out.
That's the cheapest way out.
Yeah.
For sure it is.
Yeah.
Isn't there pit toilets nearby?
There are pit toilets there, yep.
So next steps on that shelter?
Oh, well, we can't really,
I know it's not on the.
it's not
agenda.
in the agenda. So maybe you should put it on next month and we can make some decisions about how to go forward. And then financially, you know, is $50,000 there, 60,000 to do that massive work? Is that okay, Reed?
Yeah, let's put it on the agenda and we can discuss it and we
Okay.
can look at the, yeah.
Okay, great.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Do you have any other, because I know you're concerned about the lake lots, but it sounds good. Sounds
No,
good.
I'm really happy to hear
Yeah.
where we're at with the lake lots. That's excellent progress.
That is exciting.
Yeah,
I'm
very
looking
good.
forward to that meeting.
That'll be fun.
Yeah, thank you for that work.
And I'm planning on, I talked to Charmaine Anderson too, our county conservationist, so she'll be coming down there with me as well.
Excellent, good.
Alrighty, now Mr. Carlson, Economic Development Tourism Report.
Okay, well, first item is the Broadband Equity Access and Deployment Local Planning Grants. The county board members kind of know what this is about, and then plus, I mentioned it last month at PTED here, so the county board did end up approving a resolution to have the county opt in to get one of these planning grants from the state broadband office at the Public Service Commission. Today is the deadline to opt in or, you know, express intent to, to get one of the grants. We should be getting plus or minus $18,000, might be a little higher. And, since that county board meeting where that resolution was approved, I've attended a couple of webinars. Wisconsin County Association did one yesterday. UW Extension has put on a couple.
And we met with.
And we met with that state, it was a federal person
Right.
that's involved with broadband. So, just what exactly we'll do with the money once we get it sort of remains to be determined. I did reach out to Buffalo County about, potentially partnering with them. UW Extension's been in contact with Buffalo and Pepin County, and I'm actually going to meet with Pat Malone on Thursday to see what UW Extension may be able to offer in terms of some assistance. Actually, I found out on the call I was on yesterday that UW Extension's actually under contract, I think, with the broadband office to provide some technical support. So it remains to be seen whether or not, like if we got some help from UW Extension, whether we'd have to pay them out of our allocation or not. So that's something I'm hoping when I meet with Pat on Thursday this week to find out. One option that was potentially available to counties but didn't end up being available in our case was the PSC was offering a 10% bonus on top of what a county allocation would be if they participated as part of a regional, with a regional economic development group. In our case, that's Seven Rivers Alliance, and Chris Hardy informed member counties of Seven Rivers that they would not be able to be a fiscal agent or, take lead on that. So we didn't have the option of opting in regionally anyways, which I don't think is the worst thing. We may want to there might be good reasons that we just go on our own or go with like one other county or something. So that's just an update on BEAD. BEAD actually stands for Broadband Equity Access and Deployment, and these are local planning grants. So what they're intended to be used for is to really assess where there is internet access and where there isn't sufficient internet access, meaning either no service or substandard service. And then be able to come up with some ideas about like what kind of projects might be necessary to meet those unserved or underserved needs. And then down the road a couple of years, there's going to be some money coming, and this is coming from the bipartisan infrastructure law, the bill, federal bill law. In a couple of years, there'll be some money coming to actually do some projects. So this is just in terms of getting ready for that. Any questions on BEAD?
No, but I was really impressed with, the meeting with her was very enlightening about
Yeah.
all the different options and
Right.
what this one woman is in charge of all of Wisconsin, so she's got a big job, but she was really, I was surprised at what I learned.
Dave, aren't they waiting for the mapping to get sufficient mapping too, to find out where the areas that are served and are not served? That's one of the drawbacks.
Yeah, well, the
too.
FCC's got a map out there, and there's been a lot of complaints about the FCC map
They're
not
redoing that whole
really being
mapping.
accurate, so I think they're working on updating some of that. But I think also there's some anticipation that these local planning grants will help really pin that down a little bit better.
Right.
So,
Dave, who does that work? If we get the 18,000, who's going to draw that map?
yeah, well, it's not necessarily for us to draw a map. There's maps that are out there, and I think those would be a starting point for us to take a look at, okay, where can we see that there is service right now, and where is there not? I think there's a couple routes that we could go, or some combination, but it may well be that there's, consultants out there that can do some of that kind of work, and, may be really efficient at that. I think there's going to be a survey component to it, as I told the county board last week or the week before. We probably will want to send out surveys to people that are in underserved or unserved areas, ask, whether or not because theoretically, the entire county is potentially serviceable by certain types of internet providers, like Starlink. You can get Starlink service, I think, anywhere that you can see the sky, which should be most of the county, but it's also kind of pricey. So, cost as well as accessibility issues come into play, and when we talk about cost, that gets into that equity issue. That's the E in the BEAD thing. So especially if we get another county to go in with us, we might really be able to leverage and extend how much we can use that money for. And it just may make sense to get an outside provider to give some assistance.
Has anybody talked to our school districts across the county? They went through all this when they tried to do remote learning
Right.
during COVID, where you had kids at libraries. They had a really good feel for who's got service and who doesn't.
Yeah,
That's
and I think,
affordable.
that's an excellent point. And I think, schools and industry, I think it might be important to survey them and, just see what do they notice, even within their, like for the schools in particular, in their attendance boundaries, where are some known gaps that they were aware of, and how did that impact things? So.
I have Paul's email that he sent to you and I with all the resources that Cara shared
Yep.
with us. So I can forward it to you, and maybe you could send it out to the committee. It might be interesting.
Sure. Yeah, I have that email,
Because it's got the broadband map, it's got a YouTube video to watch about the kickoff event. A lot of interesting stuff that you all might find helpful.
So the county board in the resolution did authorize me to take lead on this and report back periodically. That sounds ominous. But it's really, no, in all seriousness, I am excited about being able to be involved with this, because having access to the internet is so important, for, not only educating our kids, but, just being part of the local community, and being able, for people who want to maybe start up a small business or whatever, it's critical. So it just has so many impacts, across the spectrum, and I think it fits as well, with this committee and with my position as it would with any other place in the county here, so.
Bob?
I got a question for Adi. Being a representative of a local communications company, do you guys have foresee some construction going on this summer in some areas that doesn't have service right now, to keep up with the times or?
Yeah,
or
TCC has worked with some townships already, and have completed a couple townships, and we've got, I think, 3 more. Alma is one up that way, and there's quite a few grants between the townships, the county, and TCC. They pool together and the grant money to get the fiber to all the homes, and it's expanding every year. There's a couple more townships, and now I think we're looking at Trempealeau too now.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the grants they got in. They don't know how that's coming on. And there's 3 or 4 other ones they have in there. But fiber's the way to go. Starlink is nice, but the latency from going up and down, you can't, if you're a gamer, you ain't gonna use Starlink because it's so slow. But I mean, just even your speeds aren't there. And the weather affects it more, where that fiber is a constant.
Right.
And it's a big pipe. You can put a lot of stuff down that fiber. So, but the TCC has been, they just finished Naples, and they finished another one. And like you say, with this grants coming out, like Dave said, that's going to be huge for some of the townships. They're focusing with those grants on more of the rural areas than they are the big cities. So that should help the townships.
So these spots that you guys have been moving into right now have not had internet at all before?
And if they did, they had just copper, and it was really slow.
Or satellite.
And satellite, there's one down by Trempealeau, it comes across the river, and with those bluffs, it's just not, with our terrain, it's not conducive for, that kind of you almost need that, you need that fiber in the ground to get you there.
And if you're staying at Pearl, there's like no service there.
Oh, yeah?
We were down there this summer and there was nothing on my phone. It was so dead, I couldn't believe it. And it was packed with people there, so they must just get away from their phones when they're there, which is good, but.
Not necessarily bad.
I was gonna say, that's a marketing strength.
It should be, yeah.
And especially with that many people, they're gonna
Read
take,
night.
they only got one little tower for that whole thing too. If they're all trying to feed off it, they're gonna crash.
Yeah,
I mean,
there
they
was
just can't take the
nothing.
system.
Nothing.
You gotta hike up Brady's Bluff to get
So it was great.
Gives
It's
you
gonna
some
get crowded
incentive.
up there.
Mom and Dad tell the kids, well, if you want to use your phone, go hike up the bluff there.
Adi, a follow-up question. Then. Do we already have a pretty darn good idea in the county what's served and what isn't by fiber then? Is that map already out there?
TCC has a good map of what we've got served, and they have, they do. They have a map of what their territory is and where we've expanded now. So it's gotten bigger. And, they do. So if you wanted to talk to, Buck,
Yeah.
I'm sure you've talked to Buck before, and
Yep. Yeah, Buck reached out to me as soon as he saw these BEAD local planning grants available, and it was funny because I was getting ready to call him the same day, and I think the maps are probably pretty good, and there's a pretty good idea of where do we have in broad strokes the access, but I do think as we get into this planning grant stuff, that what's going to really be important is maybe in areas that are not served by fiber or, some kind of land-based internet, with higher speeds and more reliability, is where, in those areas that are unserved, how are people getting internet access, if they're even getting it? And how much is it costing?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think, that all figures into the economics potentially going forward of doing a project. So, if somebody's paying, if somebody's only option, and Reed's kind of in this situation, right?
We have Starlink.
Isn't Starlink your only option,
Pretty
really?
much. Or DSL.
Yeah, and what does it cost? Like $250 a month or
No, it's
something?
like 130.
Okay, well,
We can run 7 or 8 devices off of
it depends, and it depends on what speed you want.
Right.
I think Starlink's got, higher speeds available up to like $300. Well, that's a lot
That's a
different.
lot of money.
That's a lot different from like, the $60 or $70 that I might pay in Galesville,
Right.
to TCC for internet service.
When I send you this stuff, Buzz, there's a broadband map, and you can enter your address, anybody's address, and it'll tell you who the provider is, and It's an interesting
Yeah, well, I know
tool.
TCC's been at this for over a decade.
Yep. I feel
bringing
blessed to
fiber.
have
I
them.
mean, we've had it at our house
yeah.
for 13 years now.
It's been
so.
at least 10 years, yeah.
Any other questions about BEAD? All right, so I'll get,
Just, what about TCC? I know in general, TCC, on the cable side has always been kind of ahead of the game for rural areas, so I do know that on that side. Going back to the 80s when I grew up in the Humboldt area, so you guys were pretty progressive for the time on that.
DCC just went together with cable back in the early 2000s because they were on their own. But cable started in the late 70s. And then they joined like 2004 or 5, so right in there. And yeah, they've been very active in replacing, since fiber come out, replacing all the coax with fiber. Really helps your speeds.
They are dropping your email, but that'll give them more time to do other things.
Well, it's just, I think they're just redoing or they want you to move on to the new one. That's the oldest email, I think.
Yeah, we have to, so
I'm
you'll
not-
be surprised at how many people you have to notify of your new email address when
But I
you,
think they had a program that if you told them what your new email address is, they would put it in.
Right.
So when somebody sent
Yep.
it to your old one, it would automatically get your new one.
yeah, Ben
Right.
Gums has been doing a lot
Yeah,
of training
yeah.
all over the state, helping people my age and older on how to make that, because that's been my email address since email existed, so. But, yeah, the switch is hard. Anyway, any other questions regarding this? Okay, good.
all right, so I'm going to move on here. And if there's questions, go ahead and stop me, otherwise I can take questions at the end. So next week I'll be in Green Bay for a few days at the Wisconsin Governor's Conference on Tourism. This is, the top tourism conference of the year, and should be really some good information. I looked at the agenda, and I'm really looking forward to being there for that. Tomorrow, I'm meeting in the afternoon with the Galesville Parks and Rec Committee. They had reached out to me because they are looking at potentially doing some improvements out at the Arctic Springs Fireman's Park, which I found actually was interesting. So the city of Galesville owns that land where that park is. However, it's not in the city of Galesville, it's in the town of Gale. And I guess that's the former site of the golf course out there once upon a time. So I told them that I would come along and listen and, see what they were looking for, some sources of funds, potential grant opportunities. I explained to them that we don't have any money ourselves for that, but that I would come and listen, and then, we would check and see if there's any resources we could figure out, to connect them with. So, but, yeah, that was a nice invitation. I'm meeting with I'm not going to say who it is, but I'm meeting with a banking group next Friday that's got several banks in the county, and they wanted to come and talk about economic development and tourism efforts, what we're doing, and I will shamelessly say that I'm going to make a pitch, for them, to see if they might be interested, if we can get some other banks pulled together to put some money in to capitalize like a local revolving loan fund. That's one of the things that was on my work plan, is on my work plan for this year, so that should be fun. Wisconsin Rural Summit, that's something the University of Wisconsin's putting together, March 23rd. It's online, it's a webinar, so I'll be attending that. Reed and I have spent some time working on a marketing plan for Petrick Park that I think we're getting pretty close to getting pinned down. We're going to try some different new ideas to, encourage people to, book, especially on, either side of Memorial Day and Labor Day, the not the in-between, but the outside those time periods before Memorial Day and Labor Day, trying to encourage people to do, book week-longs maybe, that kind of stuff. Wisconsin Agricultural Tourism Association, that's a group that we joined last year, that we've been a member of now for almost 6 months. Their annual meeting is tomorrow, and I'm up for a board spot with Wisconsin Ag Tourism Association, so it sounds like it's a for sure thing. I'll be on the board, because they had reached out and asked me if I'd be interested in being on the board, so I'll report back on that. And then finally, this is not my product by any means, but this is our Department of Land Management annual report. I'm going to pass those around. Verge did all the layout for this report. Staff provided content for it. And I'll let, Mike, you want to say a few things about the annual report?
Yeah, Verge did a fantastic job on this, and it really was a department effort to get all the information together. It's a lot of work, but I think it pretty much summarizes all the key initiatives we've been involved with in 2022. And, this is something you may want to keep handy, because sometimes what I have found over last year is that a lot of times if you have a question on something, there could be some answers in the annual report to kind of give you a general idea on something, number of permits issued in development services section in the back or whatever. So it is a good reference. And it just covers 2022. And I think it is a good thing to kind of, I always talk with staff about reflecting back over the next year and what did we accomplish, what can we do better, where would we like to do go in the future, and this is kind of part of that process. So
This is very nice.
we did post it on the DLM Facebook page, and I think we'll probably get it out to the rest of the county board as well in one form or fashion. But we tried to keep it as simplified as possible. One little note in there, you'll see sections, this relates more to environment and land use, but you can see last year's conservation speaking contest, and we had someone take second at the state last year. Well, this year, we just had our conference in Wisconsin Dells. We had 2 people go to state from Trempealeau County, and they both took second. So there was, I'm going to forget the names, Katie Buttman and, what was that? Charlie Thompson, yes. So they took second in the state. And the winners, what's amazing, the winners in each of the categories, they got to do their speech in front of 450 people.
Wow.
and they did fantastic. So anyways. Couple of things I'll note. If you go to the Economic Development Tourism page here in the report, we did see, and you heard some of these numbers last month when we had River Travel Media in here, but we did have an 84% increase last year in total visits to the various Trempealeau County tourism web pages. I think last month they had said that was like a 500% increase in visits to the homepage, and that's true. This is the broader, number of visits to different specific pages. We had a 35% increase in followers of our Trempealeau County Tourism Facebook page. And the bottom one here is one that I'm not sure that that I mentioned last year when the tourism numbers came out, but the overall direct visitor spending in Trempealeau County in 2021 totaled $34.8 million, which was a 27.2% increase from 2020. And for those of you who weren't on this committee, last year, the thing about 2020 spending versus 2019 was a lot of counties took a huge hit because of COVID, right? Trempealeau County in 2020 was down like 0.2%.
We were number one in the state.
Yeah, we were basically flat, where other counties took a huge dip. So the fact that we kind of stayed even from 19 to 20, and then took a 27% increase, versus other counties who year over year spending, some were like in the 40% range last year, but they had gone down like 40% the year before. We're doing exceptionally well. And those the 2022 numbers will be coming out plus or minus April or May, and so I will really be curious to see what did we have for an increase, because that might inform too whether or not the extra marketing we did had an impact. And then the last thing is, if you look on the back page under media outreach, I think this is really important, and I will say, having worked in government public relations or media for like going on 40 years now, this department is doing really fantastic in terms of getting out, the word through different channels and stuff here. So, we've got now 4 different Facebook pages that we manage within this department. Department of Land Management has 278 followers to its page and growing. The Economic Development Facebook page that I launched last year, a month or two after I started, it's got 171 followers. Parks and Rec has 330, although this is misleading because we made a changeover last year. We created a new Parks and Rec Facebook page because there were 2 or 3 other pages floating around out there, and somewhere along the line we had lost control over the main one people were using. So we just created a new one, and the old one's shut down now, right?
Yes.
We finally got rid of that?
To my knowledge, yes.
Yes.
I haven't looked for it, but.
But how many followers did you have on your old page, Reed? It was probably, what, pushing 1,000 maybe?
I'd say so, yeah.
Yeah. So we've been doing some work to try to, encourage people to like the Parks and Rec Facebook page. And I think there's some real opportunities with that. And of course, I inherited a lot of this success, but, Trempealeau County Tourism, we're now over 2,700 and growing. So, it just, the more those numbers grow, just exponentially, the more reach you've got and stuff like that. And then if you look at the page view numbers for the different web pages we have, those are really good.
Yep.
For a small county.
And one thing too that has been new that we started up fall of '21 was a hard copy department newsletter to all property owners.
Which is very nice.
It's not cheap to do, but you need to get out to people in different ways, communicate in different ways, and we did that fall 21. We got so many positive comments. We did it again in 2022, and there's a lot of people that, again, they read every page of it, and it has, when we do our tree and shrub sale, it has impacted, I think there's people that said they didn't know it was a program, and they've been in the county for a while, and so our tree and shrub sales went up over 50% this year, partly due to reaching out to that and partly going to online ordering. That makes it real easy and getting everything right. So we've really, having the web pages, having the Facebook pages, doing some hard copy makes a big difference, getting the word out.
Dave, I got a couple of questions. First one, going back to you getting together with those banking folks, and you talked about bringing that consortium of the banks. Is that an appropriate time to put an ask? Most of those banks in their charter have a direct charter that says you got to give X amount of your profits back to your communities, and to put an ask on park development to that group?
Potentially, yeah.
I know when Eliva Strum did it, and we did it when it was the old United Bank in Osseo. All those profits had, and I know Bank of Wamedy has it in theirs. And it's not little bits of money. We were getting hundreds of thousands of dollars from those banks for community development projects when we were upgrading. You guys got the new sports facility in Eliva Strum. They dumped a ton of money into our auditorium when we built the new school up in Osseo in 2002, so somehow seed that conversation, because we're going to need some real, and that's huge match, because then you got match to go to the grants that we don't have to generate from the coffers of its local match for all the grants that are out there.
I also went to Osseo Fairchild Junior High School right when that was completed. It was a big difference. I remember I was there during the transition, and the money they stuck in versus what we had, I was a beneficiary of that. It was good.
I like how the banks have stepped up recently in getting involved in the community, because in Blair, they're doing home delivered meals, some of the bank employees, and so it's really, it's kind of, I like it.
Yeah. I guess the follow-up question, I just ran the numbers that, I don't know how that 34.8 million in tourism got generated, but that's 174,000 and the 0.5% sales tax. Does the county board compartmentalize how that 0.5% sales tax gets generated, so those departments that are kind of focusing on get the benefit from some of that money?
Well, that's a good question.
I mean, that's real money.
That is a good question.
It is a good question. Paul, are you listening? Call us.
Yeah, I'm not aware. I mean, I'm probably wrong on this, but I may well be right. I think that the money just goes into the general fund.
We can bring that up as a supporting factor in our
I think we
2024
should.
budget request.
Yeah.
You should. I mean, that's huge money, 35 million bucks.
Yeah, the State Department of Tourism is the one that compiles these direct visitor spending numbers, and, I think they have a reputation for being pretty good, pretty solid with their methodology on coming up with those numbers. So if we can look and we can make a case that, well, look, this is direct visitor spending. This is
Right.
money, spent at hotels or, restaurants and that kind of stuff. Yeah, I think that would be
I mean, we recognize.
a good
we're-
ask, potentially.
We're small peanuts in the county budget, relatively speaking. We're just a few percent. But saying we're generating this kind of revenue in the counties, just so there's an awareness there, if nothing else.
And I think especially, if we, like I said, if we get the tourism, those direct visitor spending numbers for '22, and, we're up, 35, 40%. If we can look and say, hey, we had another big jump over what we, did the year before, I think that's probably going to be, attributable back to the extra money that we spent on marketing in '22. I think that then justifies some additional, money to maybe be put into marketing, because, I mean, I can find a way, and we spent the entire 14,000 that we had last year for marketing, in addition to the 19,000 we had through the federal grant. So there, if 14 is all we've got, I can find a way to do that. If we have 20, if we have 20 grand, 25 grand, we can find a way to spend that and then expand the reach and do even better things with it.
Yeah, make a note, because budget
Yeah.
time is like, I hate to even say it.
I know, it's
4.5
coming up already.
months away.
Yep.
So keep that in mind when you're, and we can, I can ask Paul exactly how much. I mean, we get it every month at our county
Yeah.
board meeting, what the sales tax was for the month. And it's always increasing. We're so nicely located, this county, if you want to go to La Crosse from Eau Claire, you kind of got to go through Trempealeau County, and people are starting to talk about Trempealeau County a lot, so.
I'll mention anecdotally, I had, in the last month or two, I've had at least 3 or 4 phone calls from, people from outside the county, different places down towards Madison, Milwaukee area, and then surprisingly, one from Bayfield just a couple of weeks ago, calling about snowmobile trails and, saying, hey, we're thinking about coming. where can we park, that kind of stuff. And so, I connected them with information. But the one from Bayfield really kind of jumped out at me. And I talked to this guy and I said, hey, that's great that you're coming, but you got some pretty good snowmobiling.
Yeah, there's like 5 feet up there.
You got pretty good snowmobiling up there. Yeah, but we want to try something new. And,
Right.
I heard about Trempealeau County, so I think, some of the stuff that we're doing with pushing the snowmobile trail, not just pushing the trail information out there, but, sharing it on our Facebook page, with 2,700 followers. It's starting to pick up some momentum, I think. So that was really good to hear that somebody, from Bayfield with excellent snowmobiling would want to come down here. And I followed up with the guy afterwards. I said, did you make it down? Oh, yeah. And they ended up parking up at the Viking Golf Course in Strum and getting on the trail right there. And he said that they rode from Strum to Pleasantville and, came back to Strum and, had lunch or whatever, and just really had a good experience.
There's a new coffee shop in Strum called the Sunset Roaster, and it's great. And it's cute, and they have the best, I'm doing a little plug for them, because it's a new little business right on Main Street in Strum. So you need to check it out and go have coffee. I took some pictures, I'll send them to you.
What building is it in?
It's a tin building, it used to be Michael's Electric, and it's gone. It's the grocery store, and then there's something else, and then this little tiny building, but it's long. So the front you can sit at tables and a couch and talk, and then the back is where the coffee and cookies and maybe other stuff. But Bob.
Dave, just to add to your thing, Saturday morning was kind of a unique situation at my business, but I had 6 different groups of snowmobilers coming from the north. They were all from Iowa, but at different times. And they asked quite a bit about the snowmobiling in our area, since rural and, the rolling hills and stuff like that. But I mean, that was kind of unique, having 6 different groups stop and ask about the snowmobiling. And these guys were hauling some pretty big machines behind them.
I think Reed's got something to say, but let me just jump in real quick. So this has been an interesting winter. Because, and I kind of knew this before we got into the winter, but this just kind of confirmed it, is that people had told me that we have some really excellent snowmobiling conditions and trails and a setting here. The trick is just, the caveat is when we have the snow. And so we can't, unlike some of the northern counties where it's maybe a little bit more reliable if they'll have snow, we can't do a big campaign saying, hey, you know what, all winter we'll have snowmobiling trails. Even they can't do that sometimes. But if what we do is we approach it from the perspective of being able to be nimble in marketing and promotion, and when we know there's a snowstorm that's going to be coming, that's going to open the trails or keep them open, to be able to kind of play off of that. Because, for a lot of people, snow is bad news, but in the case of snowmobiling trails and the economic impact that can have, it's good news. And I think I've described it some you hear, up north along Lake Superior, if the conditions are just right, you get those ice caves, right? But you can't predict it. And so when they kind of appear, then they'll promo the hell out of that, statewide, come see the ice caves, blah, blah, blah. That's, I think, with snowmobiling and winter sports, or snowmobiling in particular, that we have to really push. And I think now that we've been through it, there's some lessons learned for me in terms of how I think we can most effectively spend that money. But, winter is a real good opportunity for us to increase visitor spending.
Well, I think the terrain here might be more fun than Douglas County. I mean, it's beautiful up there along the lake.
Right.
But we have the hills.
Yeah.
And, we benefit from the coulee region.
So Reed and I will do a debrief on this, and I think, after after things kind of settle down, I want to get together with the snowmobile clubs and, talk about some other things. We've talked about updating the snowmobile trail map and some of that kind of stuff.
We need to continue to reinforce the biking too. Yesterday, 5 bikes, electric bikes, went down my road. I'm like, are you guys nuts?
You can't believe the calls I've gotten this winter, probably half a dozen calls where they say, oh, the trails are open? Where can I rent a snowmobile?
Oh,
So that was interesting. This is the first year
Wow.
I've heard that.
Is there such a thing?
Dave and I looked into it.
Well,
Eau
this
Claire,
might be a
LaCrosse.
business development plan here.
There you
Yeah,
have
let's
it.
rent some snowmobiles.
Throwing it out there.
And rent some electric bikes. E-bikes
Yeah.
are like really big. I mean, when I saw these people, I thought they were nuts because the part of the road is just like crunchy, icy mess, but they were having a blast going
Yeah.
up and down the hill.
And I mean, yeah, in all seriousness, that is, yes, there are business opportunities in outdoor recreation in Trempealeau County. We have a call in a couple weeks with a business that reached out to us, and I don't know what will come out of it, if anything, but they are starting to get into the space of doing self-service kayak and paddleboard rentals, where they have like a cage basically, and then you can unlock the cage to get your kayak and life vest and all that stuff with an app on your phone. And they had reached out about, asking whether or not we had any public accessible kayak launches and stuff. And I said, well, we've got Petrick Park. Let's talk about that, or let's talk about what you're doing, because there's some other communities that have accessible kayak launches too. But yeah, there's, in terms of outfitting people, whether it's snowmobiles or renting, cross-country skis or
Snowshoes.
even like a
I
fat
asked
tire.
somebody asked me about where can I rent some snowshoes.
Yeah. So there might be a.
That's a business, an outfitter that does
Yep.
all of that.
Yeah, and I think we've got enough year-round business of things that they could do. And, it doesn't have to be a huge business, but
Right.
have a small stock that can expand as demand grows.
Wow, good ideas. Any questions are you done? Reed, did you want to say something?
No.
Okay. All right, we're on to number 10, future agenda items, and one would be the lower shelter. Any other ideas?
Touching base with the schools that have the construction penalty, if you got time in the next month, I know it just adds another ask to you, but,
Sure, I can do that.
I'd love to hear where things continue to go for Three Lakes,
yeah, an
that
update on 3 Lakes.
project.
Jean, are you still on the phone?
Yes, I am.
Do you have any updates on some of the stuff you're doing with tourism and the Great River Road and?
Sure. We are, the visitor guides are done, so they will be being delivered, and since Dave is coming to Green Bay, we'll make sure he gets a couple boxes so he can distribute them, because the county took out a half-page ad
Okay.
in the guide. The guide is absolutely fabulous. We printed 55,000. They've already picked them up, 15,000 of them to travel to the east side of the state, where the Wisconsin Great River Road is paying for them to be distributed to the 2 Wisconsin rest areas, and then down from Beloit all the way up Lake Michigan and around to Green Bay. And when Bud was talking about, the trout situation, Sarah Strassman used to be on our technical committee for the Wisconsin Great River Road. She left that position, unfortunately, but she is now in charge of Trout Unlimited. And she's extremely passionate about things. She used to work for the Wisconsin DNR, so that's another person in regards to getting, because we have tons of beautiful area for trout. We got a new director for the River Region Planning Commission, Bob Engel. We lost Bob Golnick. Well, we didn't lose him. He took a different job, but he's staying on to help for a little bit. We're going to be working on the spring cleanup, adopt a highway program. We've tried to do it before, but people have changed so much since the state has changed staffing and cutting down and whatever. So we're trying to get an updated list of that because some people have passed away or they don't do it anymore and whatever. So we're trying to work with the Wisconsin DOT, Department of Transportation, on that. Sarah Riggleman is the one that is now on our technical committee. She took over Sarah Strassman's job, and she's doing biking with Francis Sheffield from the Wisconsin DOT. So the Mississippi River Trail is what the county board provided us with a resolution, as well as all the 33 communities up and down the Wisconsin Great River Road. So that means it'll be marked on the state highway MRT signs, and that'll come up with a new map, and I'll get you that when those are finished. We also got 5,000 of the 10 state Mississippi River Parkway maps that I'll also be able to provide to Dave, so he can get those out if he'd like, or keep them at the office, whatever. I'm working on the June Dairy Day breakfast and the Trumpealeau County Fair for promotion for that, not only for our county but for others. And when you guys were talking about getting grants and whatever, Merrick State Park just received money for the American Disabilities Act to extend a canoe and kayak area, and you have to be a 501c3, a friends group, but every year the stewardship grant comes through the Knowles, I can't think of the last name, the Knowles project anyway. So that would also be an opportunity when Friends of Petrick Park get going, because you have to be a 501c3, but that is an opportunity that I highly encourage us to take advantage of, because every year they do it. This year was 29 projects, and it's about $26,000. And each year it's $500,000 that's out there. So it'd be a really great thing to do that. In regards to the tourism conference, I really suggest you guys go to the Wisconsin Department of Tourism page under the eventsfair.com and see all what's out there. They're really promoting. Mary Monroe Brown is in charge of the state outdoor rec department. They're going to be doing a lot of outdoor rec. They're going to be doing some diversity. They're also going to be showing smaller communities how to market, because like us, we're 14,000, but there's other communities that maybe get $2,000 to market. So it's trying to get as much for your money as you can. In regards to the Three Lakes, there is a new group through the Mount Trumpealeau Corporation's been around forever for Trempealeau, but there's a new group starting for 501c3 for the lakes area, because the water is so bad. So they're working with the DNR water people for that, and they're trying to get grants for that as well. So
that group is also working with us.
Yeah. And Bob Hammis is now the president of the new group. So it's going to be, I think it's going to be a good program for everybody to work together. And anything we can do to cooperate and everybody work together is good for all of us. So that's all I got, and I'll just wait for the email to come through when we're going to meet, because we always meet the first Tuesday of every month at usually 8:30. Correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Reed, could you
So
put Jean on the agenda every month, because there's a lot of stuff that she can just kind of fill us in on. Is that okay, Jean?
Yeah, that's fine. I'm looking at April 4th is the first Tuesday in April.
Okay.
That's what I see on my calendar. So I'm just going to pencil that in, but if something changes when the paperwork comes out, I'll go from there. You guys, everybody take care. It was nice talking. Good meeting today. Take care. Bye.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Jean.
I do have one other question, kind of out of the blue, I guess. I have a history of horseback riding, and I know it's a common recreational thing for a relatively large group of people in Wisconsin. And I know that we have got the horse trails in Petrick Park and the arena there, but what does it take to expand that? Like, whose work is that? How does that look? Is that something that could be considered? Because again, that is a group that's a very active group that goes quite distances to be able to ride on trails, that expanding that would keep that business here in the county also.
That's $1 million question. I think the arena is being incorporated into the plan, right? Because there were a lot of people when we had the public hearings wanted to keep that horse arena, correct?
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't get used, and people don't ask about using it. And there was a couple, Bob, you may remember, Steve
Jellin and Mark Brave used it for mounted shooting.
Right.
I think it's a group, though, that if we promoted it more and there were more things to do other than come to the arena, so if they were coming for a weekend, they used the arena, there were trails to do, that type of thing would be more appealing also. But I don't know how you go about developing trails.
Right, that could be something that we could put on the agenda.
At one time, the trail went all the way from the river bridge by the shavings plant, all the way to Petrick Park.
Why does it not know?
Some land had changed hands, and just the interest and stuff like that, but it was pretty much the whole distance. I think it was called the Eagles Bluff Trail or something like that.
You know, I think the snowmobile club model is a pretty effective model for expanding trails, especially when it comes to trails on private land. So you have the users actually advocating and engaging landowners with land use agreements to make that happen. I think, well, the snowmobile clubs have been around, associations been around since probably the 60s or maybe earlier, and they've really mastered how to work with private landowners. So I think that's really, there's only so much public land out there, We do have, 400 acres of farmland across from the health center. We do have 200 acres of county-owned land on Arnson Ridge. All of that is managed by the healthcare center, but owned by the county. So those are other county lands that we own, but
Why are those lands operated by the healthcare center?
the healthcare center originally started, back 100-some years ago, and the people at the healthcare center would, as a form of therapy, would work on the county farm. And I think the dairy portion of the farm closed down in the early 2000s. So that's the history behind it, and it's that the rent from that farmland goes to help their revenue line in their operations.
And they use some of that land for, because I know Jerry came to a meeting once and talked about how they take residents out for, maybe camping or doing some outdoor therapeutic stuff with some of the residents.
Is there opportunity to cooperate with them to further utilize that cooperatively, potentially?
Reed?
Oh, I would say it certainly can't hurt to ask.
Right,
I mean,
right.
And I would say, going back to your original question, Don, was, if there's a group that's very active in horseback riding, just like Mike said, there's constantly land being changed hands, or maybe a landowner that doesn't want the snowmobile trail going through their property. So the clubs are very active in immediately finding other trails via other landowners and whatnot. I think that'd be a good approach to take. So if you are part of like a horse organization, or
I'm not.
You're not, but
I had to give it up.
Okay.
I can't do it anymore, but I just know that it is a growing group,
okay.
and that there's quite a few people who travel out of the county to be able to do those things. So,
Sure. And maybe a good way to start would be talk to the healthcare center if they would be okay with there being horses on there, and maybe branch out from there to the private landowners to expand the trails. Might be a good starting point.
I would reach out to either Jerry or the Board of Trustees on that and see where the legalities might sit. That'd be more of either or, I I would say.
But you're right about leaving the county, because at one time, we would ride on the state trail, but it's so busy with four-wheelers now that it's incredibly dangerous. But like Zumbro Falls in Minnesota, they have a great trail for horses. Coon Forks, we used to ride over there all the time. You know, if you could haul your horses right in the county, would be nice, but.
I think one of the biggest ones in the county right now is the Dodge Trail Ride, and I think they limit that to like 400 people. And that's probably 25 or 30-mile horse ride.
And we used to do a Dare Drug, the Dare Drug program that the law enforcement had. And there was a farmer right off D in Trempealeau County, and it was a beautiful ride. I don't know, he might be an option. A friend of mine, it's her uncle, I think, or cousin.
Yeah, Jerry.
Yeah. Oh, God, and it was one of the best rides ever. So there are options, but you have to be able to work with landowners, and I think the snowmobile people have a good model.
I think there's one town in Hale too, Jeff Larson puts together about a 30-mile ride.
Okay.
He's got a group of people that still all ride together.
So maybe we should reach out to the horse, put that on our agenda, as if you don't have enough to do, but. When we get what are we gonna call the position that I'm dreaming of? The program coordinator anyway. Are there any other questions, issues, stuff for the agenda? If not, I just turned off my agenda. What is next? The next meeting date?
April 4th.
April 4th, okay.
That's election day, right?
Yep. We are adjourned. What time is it?
9:46.
9:46, okay.